Washington Journal continues.
Our first guest of the morning is Representative Louie Gohmert, Republican of Texas, a member of the Judiciary Committee, also a Freedom Caucus member. Good morning.
Good morning, Pedro. Great to be with you.
Talk about your thoughts on if this omnibus bill that was released yesterday will gain passage by Friday.
It's hard to say. It won't pass with 218 Republican votes. I mean, it is a disaster. It's the very thing that we belittled Nancy Pelosi over, you know, when she said we got to pass the bill to see what's in it. You have a 2,200-page bill. Of course, Obamacare, ACA was 2,500 pages, 2,232 pages, and you got 24 hours, you know, maybe 36. It's insane. That's no way to govern. And in fairness to the members of the House, we have a budget process. You have a budget, and then you have 12 appropriations bills, and the House did all of that last year. And the Senate did 0 of the appropriations bills, and they haven't done them. Whether it was Democrat, Republican, since I've been there, they don't do appropriation bill. They wait till the end of the year, and then we do a CR, an omnibus. That is so unfair. And Pedro, I really believe it's immoral. I mean, you know, most of our country's history, every generation talk like my parents did. We want our kids to have better than we have, more opportunity than we had. And for our history, you know, the Depression set people back, but that was what parents strive for. And now we are loading down future generations with more debt than they're going to be able to handle. There's no way we could raise taxes enough to pay for the kind of spending we've got. I mean, for somebody from Congress going into a bank and saying, I need a loan, well, what kind of collateral? I've got all my children here, and they're going to pay it someday. Why do you need a loan? Because I can't control myself. I just can't stop spending. That's basically where we are, and that's why I'd say it's really immoral to the next generation.
What's the new spending you're most concerned about?
Well, it's not so much new spending as it is vastly increased spending. And we have, in the Republican Party, most of us have been concerned about the military, the huge cuts, the hundreds of billions of dollars in cuts. But that was our own fault in July of 2011. We were in the majority. Had just gotten it back 7 months before. And the speaker was Boehner, and he announces this great idea. We're going to have a super committee, House and Senate. They're going to reach an agreement. And the reason they're going to reach an agreement, because if we don't, we're going to gut the military and hundreds of billions. And if we don't, also there's $300 billion in cuts to Medicare. And I got up to the member mic and I said, you know, I had a friend in high school, a little town where I grew up, whose dad had a gambling problem, and he was gambling with the big dogs in our little town. He had a hand that was almost unbeatable, out of chips, out of money, so he put his home on the table, and somebody had the hand that would beat him. And I've known since high school, no matter how good you feel about your position, you never put your security on the table in a gamble. And that's what I told the speaker. This is insane. And he said, and I quote, Louie, listen to me. These sequesters will never happen. And I said, of course they're going to happen. And he said, no, they're never going to happen because the Democrats will never allow the $300 billion in cuts to Medicare. And I said, last year, the ACA, they, without a single Republican vote, they cut Medicare $716 billion. So the only way in 2012 they can run a commercial and blame us for cuts to Medicare is if they prevent the super committee from reaching a deal. Then they have the massive cuts to the military. They have the $300 billion in cuts to Medicare, and they can say it's all because Republicans wouldn't raise taxes on our rich friends. And he said, listen to me, these sequesters will never happen. Well, they did. They gutted our military. We've been trying to make up for it ever since. And this spending bill, it goes a long way toward doing that. But the trouble is, 1.3 trillion, and this is only for half a year. You can't properly appropriate when you do this kind of $1 trillion appropriation and you have one day. I mean, the people that are negotiating, that's another problem. Paul said, we're not going to be doing this, a few people negotiating at the midnight hour. That's all we've done.
Let me pause you there real quick just to invite people to call in. 202-748-8000 for Democrats, 202-748-8001 for Republicans. Independents, 202-748-8002. And you can tweet questions or comments at C-SPAN WJ, only because we want to get to other topics.
Sure, of course, but let me just finish on that, though. He said, well, it's the Senate, we couldn't get them. Well, the thing is, and you probably heard, because I've seen, we haven't been together, but I noticed you do your homework. Well, the Speaker has appointed, we have a bicameral, bipartisan commission or committee that's going to figure out a new process. Mm-hmm. It's not going to matter. The only thing that will matter is if whoever the Speaker is, whether it's Pelosi again or whether it's Paul Ryan or somebody else, they have to tell the Senate in January, you guys are going to have to do your 12 appropriations bills in a budget, because if you don't, we are not going to negotiate on another CR or omnibus. Do what the law requires, and then we'll work out our 12 appropriations in a conference committee. And be serious about it. It's not a bluff.
Before we go to calls, I do want to get your comments on comments you've made earlier. This was quoted in The Hill. It was about Robert Mueller. You made the case that he should be fired. Why is that? Well,
and I was saying he should be, but I would encourage the president and Jeff not to fire him. But the president has told me, he's told others, I'm not going to fire him. So it's much ado about nothing, if Shakespeare wouldn't mind me using it. But he's not going to fire him. And so, yeah, I think he deserves to be fired. But the reason he can't be fired is because we have some knuckleheaded Republicans that say, oh, gee, if the president fired him, then we would need to impeach the president. That's insane.
You saw support for him from Paul Ryan. You saw support coming from Speaker
Yes, and let me tell you about that.
Sorry, Majority Leader.
And I brought up a long laundry list of reasons that he is not to be trusted to come out with a fair and impartial prosecution. And so we are now to a point, and Democrats just want Trump gone. I get that. But any Republican that says Mueller will come out with a fair, impartial investigation and prosecution is either A, just wants Trump gone like the Democrats do, B, intentionally staying ignorant of Mueller's past, or 3, they're thinking someday I'm going to go before a Senate confirmation hearing and I want the Democrats to be gentle with me, so I'm going to say Mueller will be fair. That's the only 3 type of Republicans you have that are saying Mueller is doing a good job and he'll come out fair. You ask Dr. Hatfield, whose life was ruined when he was not the anthrax killer. Ask Martha Stewart, ask Scooter Libby. There are so many lives he has ruined. Now the 4 guys from Boston that the FBI got put in prison when they were totally framed by the FBI in Boston, and they were under the direction of Mueller. He was assistant U.S. attorney, but in charge of criminal cases. But he kept writing to the parole board, don't let these guys out. They were totally framed by his people. And, Mueller leaves Boston, and the city has to pay out, $100 million or so. But 2 of the guys died in prison. So he doesn't have a very good track record. So, yeah, I feel very strongly.
We'll have follow-ups on that. Let's go to calls from Newcastle, Delaware, Republican line. Jim, you're up with Louie Gohmert, Republican of Texas. Go ahead.
Hey, Louie, you're doing a great job.
Well, thank you.
We got to get rid of this Ryan, and we got to get rid of this McConnell character. They're just poison. I don't understand it. McConnell was saying, oh, we have to return to regular order, but it's the same game that he's been pushing for years. What with this? Why does the Senate allow him to, why do the Republicans allow him to be their leader? And Ryan, we might as well have Pelosi in. He's screwing the president. And,
well, exactly.
It's terrible.
Okay, thanks,
well,
Jim.
let me mention about McConnell. He makes clear that he does not want to get rid of the 60-vote cloture rule because, we will end up back in the minority at some point, and we want to be able to have that kind of influence. But if you go back before the election in November 2016, Schumer was giving indications, maybe it's time we went back to a majority. He was thinking they were going to get the majority back, and he was going to thumb his nose at McConnell and say, hey, buddy, this is what I think. I got the impression. And the truth is, even if they want to keep the 60-vote cloture rule, they should not have it on spending bills, and they should not have it on confirmation. I was watching a black and white movie from the early 60s, and it was all about whether or not they could get that 51st vote for confirmation. So